Hello everyone. Today we're going to continue with our practice. The question we're discussing today is Leetcode 1688, count of matches in tournament. Okay. Let's get straight into the question. The question says that you are given an integer n, the number of teams in a tournament that has strange rules, right? If the current number of teams is even, okay, just a second. Yeah. So if the current number of teams is even, then each team gets paired with another team in this round of the tournament, and a total of n by 2 matches are played. Okay. So from these n by 2 matches, whichever teams win, so that means a total of n by 2 teams advance to the next round, right? Similarly, if the current number of teams is odd, one team randomly advances in the tournament. Okay. So one team straight away goes to the next round and the rest of them get paired. So a total of n minus 1 by 2 matches are played, and the teams that go into the next round are n minus 1 by 2 plus the one team that automatically advanced to the next round. Okay. What the question asks is to return the number of matches played in the tournament until a winner is decided. So the total number of matches that would be played in the tournament is what we have to return based on these rules. Okay. To understand this better, let's look at an example. So here n is 7, right? Now 7 is odd. That means in the first round, one of the teams will automatically advance and the rest of the 6 teams will play matches with each other. They'll get paired and play matches. Okay, so the number of matches will be 3, right? Which is 6 by 2. And the total teams that will advance will be 3 plus the one team that automatically advanced, so 4. Okay. Now in round 2, since the number of teams is 4, which is even, all of them can get paired with each other, so the number of matches will be 2 and 2 teams will advance. Okay. Now in round 3, since there are 2 teams, again the number of matches played will be 1, and finally one team will advance, and obviously that will be declared the winner, right? So the total number of matches that were played were 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is 6, right? And that's what the output is. Okay, so that's what we have to do for any given input n in our program. Okay, so let's see what kind of an algorithm we can make so that this can be done. Okay, so let's talk about the algorithm now. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll maintain a variable, right, called matches. So this will basically count the number of matches that have already been played. Okay, that have already been played. So when the program is just starting out, none of the matches have been played, right? So the initial value of matches in our program should be 0. Okay. And now to develop the algorithm, we'll use a flowchart. So the first thing written in the flowchart is obviously going to be our input, which is n. So n is the number of teams that are going to play in the first round of the tournament, right? But it's possible that as input n is given to us already as 1, right? So the first thing we should do is check, is n equal to 1? Okay, if n is equal to 1, then what should we do? We should directly return matches, right? If n is 1 initially, then we don't have to play any matches, right? Matches is 0, so we should just return that variable, right? But if n isn't 1, right, then what do we do? Now to decide what we have to do if n isn't 1, we need to first check another thing, right? So we need to check, is n even? Okay, if n is even, then we know that the number of matches that are going to be played in this round will be n by 2 directly, right? So what we can do is matches is equal to matches plus n by 2. So this will increase the number of matches by n by 2, right? Because in this round, n by 2 more matches will be played. So that's what we should do, right? And after this, what we need to do is change the value of n to the new number of teams remaining, right? The number of teams that are going to be playing in the next round, round 2. So how many is that going to be? That's going to be the current value of n divided by 2, right? So to do that, we should write n is equal to n by 2. Make sense? After this, we should also consider the case if n isn't even, right? That means if n is odd, then how many matches will be played? In our question, it's given to us, right? The number of matches that will be played is n minus 1 by 2, because one of the teams will advance automatically. So we should add this number to matches, and that should be the new value of matches, right? And after this, we should change the number of teams n to the new number of teams that will qualify from these rounds, right? From these matches. So what is that going to be? That is going to be 1, because one of the teams automatically qualifies, plus the winners from the matches, right? So 1 plus n minus 1 by 2, right? This is going to be the new value of n. Okay, this is also what's given in the question, right? N minus 1 by 2 plus 1, right? So that's the same thing. Now after we've done this, our program isn't going to stay in these two separate branches, right? Once we've made these two separate decisions, like once we've executed this part of the code or this part of the code based on whether n is even or not, our program doesn't need to stay in two branches anymore. It can come back to one branch, okay? Because now what I need to do is I need to check again if n is 1, right? I need to do this for both the cases. So I'll check again if n is 1, and if it is 1, then I'll just return the matches that I've counted till now, right? And if it isn't 1, then I'll repeat the same process again. So what's going to happen is this arrow is actually going to go back to this step, okay? This step, right? And clearly you can see that what this is becoming now is a loop, right? So this outer arrow that we just made is a loop, right? And this is n is equal to 1 is the ending condition of the loop, which means that while n is not equal to 1, this loop should keep running, right? And inside this loop, we have an if statement, right? So that if statement is just to see if the current value of n is even or odd, based on which we have to do two different sets of steps, okay? After we do the correct set of steps, we can come back to the same process in code and move on, okay? So that's the algorithm, right? That's it. That's all we have to do. So we can now move on to implementing it. Okay, so the implementation should be fairly easy now that we've discussed the algorithm. The first step in the algorithm was defining a variable matches and setting it to 0, right? After this, we need to start with our loop, right? So what does our loop say? Our loop says that while n is not equal to 1, we need to keep running the loop, right? So we just say while n is not equal to 1, we go into the loop. And in the loop, the first thing we need to do is check if n is even. So how do we check if n is even? We use the modulo operator, right? So if n mod 2 is equal to 0, that means n is even, right? And in the case that n is even, we need to increase the value of matches by n by 2, right? After doing this, we also need to update the value of n to the number of teams that have qualified to the next round, right? So that is just equal to the original value of n upon 2, right? We can use integer division here too, that's fine. But if n isn't even, that means if n is odd, then matches will be equal to matches plus n minus 1 by 2, right? And the new number of teams that qualify to the next round is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 by 2, right? Exactly how we discussed in our algorithm. And that's it. After this, we don't have to do anything inside this while loop, right? All we have to do is go back again and check if the number of teams that have qualified is now become 1 or it's still not 1, and we have to execute the loop again, right? Now, once the number of teams left has become 1, then that means we already have our winner, right? So all we have to do is return matches, which is the number of matches we played to finally reach to a winner. So that's it. Now this code should work. Let's try to run it to see if we have made any small errors or not. So we haven't made any small errors. We can try to submit it to see if it's actually correct. And it is correct. So that's great. And that's all for this video. Thank you for watching and keep practicing.